And Dr. Wagner, do you believe that Lenore Simmons had control of her actions the night of the murder?
In my opinion, Miss Simmons cannot control her actions. With the exception of brief periods of lucidity, she is completely governed by what Freud called the id and the ego, and the superego has no influence. However, with professional help, I believe this can eventually be overcome.
Thank you, Dr. Wagner. The defense calls Lenore Simmons to the stand. Miss Lenore, have you been on any antipsychotic medicines?
Yes.
And what were these medicines for?
I know what you're getting at. The drugs were for the delusional episodes that they thought I had. But I'm not crazy. The fact of the matter is that my senses have been sharpened. I can see and hear more acutely than any of you.
Is this so? Please, enlighten the court.
You do. You think I'm nuts.
Miss Lenore, nobody thinks you're nuts. Just explain what you mean so that we can better understand you.
Well, I'm not, you know. I can hear everything. I hear things in heaven. I hear things here on earth. I can even hear things in hell. If I can hear this well, how can I be crazy?
Okay. You're not in any need of any psychiatric attention. We've got that. Can you tell us what happened the night of Mr. Stricker's death?
Sure, I killed him. You see, I'm not delusional. I know I did it. I deserve to ride the lightning. But it's how I went about doing it that proves my sanity.
Miss Simmons, would you give the court your account of the events leading up to this?
Of course. It is impossible to say how exactly the idea came to me, but once it did, it was all I could think about. There was no reason for it. It wasn't a crime of passion. I loved the old man. He never wronged me or even raised his voice to me. I didn't want his money. It was his eye.
His eye?
Yes, it was his eye. It was a pale blue eye, like a vulture's. Whenever that eye looked at me, my blood turned into ice. So, gradually, very gradually, I made up my mind and decided to do something about it and rid myself of that eye forever.
And what did you decide to do?
You still think I'm a loon, don't you? But you see, this is the point. I'm just as sane as anyone else in this room. Madmen know nothing. You should have seen me.
Why is that?
You should have seen me. How wisely I went about it, how carefully I went about it, how well planned I was.
Miss Lenore, why did you not just kill him then?
Because I just couldn't. Like I said, I loved the old man. I didn't want him. I felt compassion for him. I knew what I had to do, though. So, to keep him from expecting my intentions, I was nicer than I had ever been to the old man until I could find the courage to do what had to be done. I think I was afraid. Yes, I was afraid. Not that I would get caught. You see, I was much too cunning for that. But that I simply would not be strong enough to destroy that thing. That evil.
Evil?
What else could it have been to elicit that kind of response? Yes, evil. And I must say, it was difficult. Do you realize how many ways there are for a person to get caught doing the kind of thing I did?
Explain.
Well, there are so many different ways. Of course, there's the whole mess of forensics. But the best way to avoid the whole mess is to make it so that nobody suspects you. You see, nobody would have suspected me. The old man loved me like a daughter. His family loved me as one of their own.
So you believe that you had everyone fooled, that nobody suspected that you did it?
No, I didn't believe I had them all fooled. I knew I did. There was no doubt in my mind.
Why did you wait, Miss Lenore, if you were certain it had to be done?
I still am.
Pardon?
certain it had to be done.
But why did you wait?
Because I could hear everything. Every creak, every squeak, every moan that old house made. And I was certain that he could too. It was difficult to not disturb the old man. He heard everything. I knew it. So I had to be careful.
I see.
No, you don't see. I was so incredibly careful, you can't understand.
So since you knew you had everybody fooled, why did you not do it then?
Simple.
He was so at peace, I couldn't do it. Such a sweet old man. Like I said, it was his eye, not him. It went on like this for a week.
And after a week, what happened?
The most wonderful thing, I slipped up.
That was good?
Of course. This went on for hours. I knew if I made the slightest move, he would know I was there. But the look in his face was one I'd never seen from him before. It was a look of mortal terror.
Mortal terror?
Yes. He knew this was it. He knew that death lingered, that he wouldn't see daylight again. So I knew this was the time. When he finally laid back down, I knew that he was at peace with it. And I knew that I had to do it then.
Why then?
I simply wouldn't have another chance.
What about the police? What about the body?
I've told you how well planned I was. I simply got rid of the body by putting it in the attic for temporary, until it would all blow over.
What about the police? Weren't you worried?
I simply explained to them how Mr. Strichter was out of town visiting family and showed them around. Of course, they never thought to ask to look in the attic. But as we were sitting there in the bedroom, it started.
What started?
He wasn't dead. I could hear his heart still beating. It was faint at first, but gradually, very gradually, it quickened in pace. I just knew they could hear it, that they were just trying to ignore it, as I was. But I knew they heard it. I knew they knew what it was. I could see it in their eyes. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore, the unbearable awkwardness.
Are you sure this wasn't a manifestation of your own guilt?